This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
It's amazing what my students with special needs can accomplish. Their pride is priceless. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome to a new member of the Governor's Cabinet, Dr. Basil Gooden, who's Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry.
Yes.
And a native of Virginia, Buckingham County.
That's correct.
Someone who's been working in the Commonwealth in a variety of capacities, but now tapped by the Governor to move in where many of our viewers know Todd Haymore.
Yes.
From his work, but as he's moved over to commerce and trade and areas of economic development there, you've moved in the ag and forestry. So
yes,
welcome.
Sir. Thank
welcome.
you so much. I really do appreciate this opportunity.
Well, we'd like to introduce you to our viewers by having you even start by telling us some about your roots in Buckingham County and what you've been doing in the Commonwealth before the Governor came knocking and said, I've got another job for you.
Well, thank you so much again. And yes, as you said, I'm a native Virginian. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia, and raised in Buckingham County, raised on a farm there in Buckingham County, went through the Buckingham County public school system. When I was growing up, my parents were educators. My father was a school principal. My mother was a home economics teacher, as they were called back then. And so we were very familiar with growing our own vegetables from the garden. And back then we also raised hogs in addition to cattle. And one thing, we currently still raise cattle there in Buckingham County, Black Angus beef cattle. And so I look forward to getting up there almost every weekend to work on the farm there. So I grew up in Buckingham County, went to Virginia Tech for undergraduate school. It was a really interesting story. My high school guidance counselor told me that when I was trying to make a decision which college to go to, my high school guidance counselor called me in and said, well, city boys go to the University of Virginia and country boys go to Virginia Tech. And so that closed the deal for me, because I certainly consider myself a country boy. And I went to Blacksburg and had a tremendous educational experience there. But
before you leave Blacksburg,
yes.
It really wasn't, from my, I think if I've checked you out right,
yes.
It wasn't so much ag and forestry as it was political science.
That's exactly right. Yes,
right.
I studied political science there at Virginia Tech, and and quite candidly, when I left Buckingham County. One thing that you may be familiar with, farm work is hard work.
Yes.
And
yes.
so growing up on the
yes.
farm and having to feed the animals and take care of things, and quite candidly too, when I went to Virginia Tech, my father told me to focus on going to where the opportunities are, where the jobs are. And he quite candidly told me, don't focus on coming back to the country. go to where the jobs are, because there were no jobs, in the country, which really ignited a passion within me to really focus on developing opportunities in rural Virginia. So when you have the man that you admire most on the planet telling you not to come back to your hometown, that struck a chord with me. And so every day to this very day, from when he dropped me off in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech to this very day, I worked day in and day out to make sure that there are opportunities in rural Virginia just as there are opportunities in the urban and the metropolitan areas. I appreciate the metropolitan areas, but I'm passionate about the rural areas and making sure that there are opportunities for the kids in Scott County and Lee County and Buckingham County, just as there are in Northern Virginia and Richmond and Virginia Beach as well. So I am a huge advocate of rural and the rural Virginia and the country folks.
Well, I can see where you got that passion. I can see where you still have it. But I think you also were starting to on your educational part. We talked about that after Tech, you left the state for
Yes, I did.
for higher degrees.
I did. Actually, when I left Virginia Tech, I worked in a congressional office. I worked for Congressman L.F. Payne in the 5th Congressional District, representing the south side of Virginia. And actually, that's where I met former Secretary of Ag Todd Haymore. We worked together with L.F. Payne, and that was a great opportunity, employment opportunity, and it was great working with Todd and Congressman Payne as well. But I left the state after working with L.F. Payne to go to Syracuse University. I got married and went to Syracuse University and achieved a master's degree in social work. And actually, I had agreed to go to Syracuse. Yeah, Syracuse, because my wife was actually studying there for her PhD at Syracuse, and we made an agreement that I would follow her for her PhD, and then I get to choose to go to where I wanted to get my PhD.
Yes.
I wanted to come back south, and so I came back to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and so that's where I pursued a PhD and also another master's degree in public health, and then also a PhD in social work.
And then following that, as you then came back into the Commonwealth fairly soon, working with the Department of Housing and Community Development as Chief Deputy.
Yes, sir. And actually, the first job that I had here in the Commonwealth, I worked with Virginia Cooperative Extension in their Community Viability Program.
Yes, well aware of that. That's a great program.
So that was a great opportunity to learn more about the state. So I was right there in Blacksburg. It was really interesting when my wife and I left Blacksburg and Virginia Tech. We had no idea that we would go back to Blacksburg, but that's where she got her first job, and I went there and also got a job with Cooperative Extension. And so I worked with agents all across the Commonwealth back then, almost with every office in every county. Worked with some tremendous people there in Cooperative Extension, because they do great work across the Commonwealth, helping develop the communities, but also helping develop farms. The agents are just tremendous. So that was a great launching pad for my next position, where actually I went to the Department of Housing and Community Development. And I worked there for 12 years as the Chief Deputy Director there under Bill Shelton, who's been a director, a long-time director there. And I can't think of a better employment opportunity to learn about the ins and outs of every community here in the Commonwealth. As you know, the Department of Housing and Community Development invests in each and every small town across the Commonwealth with its Community Development Block Grants program, tremendous programs to really help the economic viability of economically distressed areas in the state. So that was just an outstanding experience working at the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Now, when you were in Cooperative Extension, because some of our viewers maybe only lived in the cities, but I think that many of our viewers lived sometime in the country. If they were familiar with 4-H,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And in the school system, that was starting folks out at a young age.
Right, right. Yes, absolutely. Cooperative Extension has some great programs, certainly to enhance the youth and provide them leadership opportunities and to get them into civic engagement.
Right.
And certainly 4-H is a tremendous program that they have across the state. I was in 4-H when I was coming along, and certainly the people before me and people after me. Well, it really teaches you, about leadership and becoming engaged in civic participation and looking out for your neighbors and your communities. And so it's a great character building organization. And so it was just great being a part of 4-H. And I'm so glad that in my current role, we are continuing to support 4-H.
Oh,
and,
so it's come back around.
Oh,
for
yes,
you.
sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. 4-H and,
Yes.
and FFA actually as well. So we can talk more about those programs as we move forward. But Cooperative Extension does a tremendous job at helping communities, not only rural communities, but also urban and metropolitan communities as well.
I still have my FFA jacket from Appomattox High School, but it has shrunk over the years.
Yes, sir.
It has a way of doing that.
Sure, the corduroy, absolutely. Yes,
Yes.
sir.
It has a way of doing that. Now, before we would get into your secretariat and the work you're doing, for a while you were appointed by the president and you were heading up the work of USDA.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Here in Virginia?
Yes, sir. Yes. In 2014, actually, I left the Department of Housing and Community Development, and I went to work for USDA Rural Development. Rural Development is one of 17 agencies within USDA. You have the Farm Service Agency. Well, you have many organizations within USDA. Rural Development focused specifically on economic development through several, well, actually about 40 programs. And but they all fall under either housing or infrastructure or rural business development. It's a tremendous operation, and as the state director, you have the opportunity to help guide and direct funds. And since 2009, USDA Rural Development in Virginia typically allocated about $1.2 billion in rural Virginia. And that's a sizable economic impact, certainly when we're talking about housing and certainly job creation. And all those funds are primarily in rural Virginia. So again, you think about that type of money here in Virginia, that makes a significant impact.
Oh, it does. We were talking before the show started about the long-term 30-year loans that go to colleges that you and I were both familiar with, and that really is a major asset, and it creates jobs and it creates a place for students to live and to study.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We work with many of the academic institutions across the Commonwealth. One great program is the telemedicine program, working with the University of Virginia, where they could actually deliver health care out into Wise County and out to some of these remote communities across Virginia, Carilion as well, Virginia Tech. So USDA Rural Development collaborates strategically with state and local agencies to really address the needs of those communities. And it's a tremendous organization, and I'd really like to talk about it and promote it a lot more than it's promoted, because it is changing the lives and changing communities every day across Virginia.
Well, in your new position, and we'll come to that now, it still gives you an opportunity, I suppose, to make sure that people are knowledgeable and are finding ways to get connected with USDA.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And that's one thing that I really love about this position as Secretary of Ag and Forestry, is actually developing partnerships and continuing these partnerships, certainly building on what Secretary Haymore has done, and actually Secretary Bloxham before him, but really looking at how we can leverage resources from the state, federal, and local levels. And so really continuing to work with USDA Rural Development, but other branches of USDA as well, Farm Service Agency, and we'll talk more about some of the programs that I'm very interested in rolling out in the Secretary of Ag and Forestry. But it's really about partnerships. I mean, we can't go into communities and tell them, what to do or how to do it. Certainly as a farmer, farmers are very, very opinionated,
Right,
so they
right.
know how they want things done, and so we certainly don't go in and tell them or the communities. So we work in tandem, we work in conjunction with communities to help them achieve their economic goals and dreams. And so partnerships are a big part of that.
So what about some of the programs then that you're interested in be working on?
Certainly. Within the Secretary of Ag and Forestry, you're very well aware of the APHIT program, and certainly that's incentive-based grant program that goes to agribusinesses. And so we're going to certainly continue to push the APHIT program forward. Those funds, again, they go to agribusinesses. What we're going to roll out here very briefly is the Farm Business Development Program, where those are $5,000 grants that will go directly to farmers and producers. And again, it's targeted to sort of the small farms to help them better position themselves to be able to take advantage of, say, the APHIT program or to market their produce internationally. This Farm Business Development Program is really going to focus on the operation side of the farmer's business, whether it's a business developing a business plan or succession planning, or really marketing plan. So really, what I found is that farmers know how to farm.
Yes, right.
And sometimes the business aspect is lost a little bit, or it has to take a back seat to the farming. And so what we want to do is to best support farmers by providing them with some type of economic incentive to grow their business side as well. So looking at rolling that program out in November, later this year, November or early December. And again, we're going to roll it out across the Commonwealth. So that's a significant program that we are looking forward to telling you more about.
So, and those grants, well, sounds like they would really be aimed to help those small farmers be able to move forward.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And one thing that I've been doing since I've been Secretary of Ag and Forestry, I've been really showing appreciation for farmers. One thing that we tend to forget is that the important role that farmers play in our lives every day. They are an integral part of our lives. We don't even think about, say, where the food's going to come from for our breakfast in the morning or lunch or dinner in the afternoon, because we've relegated that responsibility to a farmer. And so oftentimes we sort of underappreciate what farmers bring to the table. And because farmers do what they do so well, we're able to focus on what we do as professionals. So we don't have to, concern ourselves with, providing or going to the garden and picking our vegetables or fruit to provide food for our family, because a farmer somewhere is going to do that for us. And so we can focus on our career. We can focus on, becoming the best doctor, lawyer, or teacher that we can be. And again, what I am very keenly interested in is making sure that we understand the vital importance of farmers, producers, and agriculture to our lives, and also forestry as well. I'm also a tree farmer. My family has a tree farm in Buckingham County as well, and the role of forestry that plays in our lives. So, as I go across the Commonwealth, I really express my appreciation, the governor's appreciation to the farmers and to the producers for the vital role that they play in our economic progress, but also the vital role in our daily lives as we move forward in the Commonwealth.
And traveling around the Commonwealth, if you get off the interstates and are on other highways, you don't have to go very many miles in rural areas before there's a stand.
Yes.
Where there's a farmer who's an entrepreneur as well, and whether it's pumpkins in this season or apples or whatever it is. And those of us who now live in urban areas have become well acquainted with farmers markets.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes,
That are
sir.
really, and the only thing that I hear is from some of the smaller farmers markets, friends and people in our family saying, we wish more farmers were there with even with other products.
Sure, sure. So yes, the farmers market movement and all the local food movement is tremendous. It's really big, and I think that is the future of farming. People want to get closer to their food. I mean, people want to know, where
Yes.
their produce is coming from. And you're absolutely right. Farmers have to be entrepreneurs. I mean, farmers are chemists. I mean, you have to know the chemical makeup. You have to know the pH in your soil. And so they have to be adaptive, innovative, entrepreneurial. The future of farming really belongs to those that can be adaptive, and the technology that's coming along, not only in farming, but the ag industry. It is tremendous. I mean, we're not farming the same way we farmed 10 years ago. It's not your grandfather's farm. So
Right.
it really requires adaptability, embracing technology. And so one thing that we're really focusing on too is making sure that we understand that agriculture is inclusive. I want to make sure that we focus on everybody being a part of farming, because again, it impacts our lives. I want to make sure that women are represented in farm leadership. Minorities are represented in farm leadership. I'm keenly interested. I mean, one thing you learn growing up on a farm in Buckingham County is, the need to be self-sufficient. And,
Right.
the more people that I feel that can, provide, some of their own food, I'm happy because, again, it's something when you are a steward of land, and if you can, you don't need a whole lot of land to farm. I mean, again, you can do you can grow a garden in a small urban space. And you see that more and more each day here in the Commonwealth as well. So I'm a huge proponent of people being able to grow something on their own, to provide their own nutrition and nourishment in some kind of way.
Now, recently I was up in the Shenandoah Valley and seeing some of the commercial development. I wondered about farmland preservation, and I know that's part of your initiative.
Yes,
too.
certainly, certainly. And that's a big issue as well. One, making sure that we retain farmland, or just retain land in its natural state.
Right.
That's a big issue. What we see in a lot of areas is actually land loss, and then you also see development encroaching on a lot of these farm lands as well. When I moved into my neighborhood in Henrico, actually it's in the Short Pump area, there was a huge dairy farm not too terribly far from where we live, and certainly now that it's developed. Development certainly is important. Development has
Right.
certainly a place, but also preserving the natural resources and farmland, because again, farmland and rural areas will be a vital part of the future of this country and this Commonwealth. There's, again, when we talk about renewable energy, when we talk about, again, providing the things that these metropolitan areas need, farmlands are going to provide that. And so certainly we're going to have to focus on farmland preservation and just land preservation as well, and not having these lands lost through a big issue in rural areas it's called air properties, where you don't plan well for succession. And so when parents die, then the land is divided and left among the siblings, and oftentimes that property is lost because they don't pay taxes or for whatever reason. And we're looking to find solutions to address land loss through air property issues as well.
Well, you've got a great deal of work to do in your secretariat, and certainly we appreciate the opportunity to hear about your background, because it all comes together in this secretariat in which you're in. So,
Yes.
Secretary Gooden, thank you very much for being on This Week in Richmond.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Look forward to it again.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.